Raise your hand if you remember when you learned how to use a faucet. I've given this speech 7 or 8 times. I've never had someone raise their hand. It's funny standing here today because 12 years ago, when I would have had the opportunity to sit in your seats, I would have laughed hysterically if you would A, tell me that I'd be still in Central New York, B, doing what I do, because I, again, like Sean said, hadn't touched a camera yet. If you had asked me in high school, I would have told you I will never own a business and I will not be in Central New York. So it's funny how things turn out, and you also look back and realize that you're actually bred for where you are today. I'm going to kind of take you guys through what I do in the community and overseas. Locally, I work with mostly large companies and large nonprofits. I deal a lot with economic development. This is Marcy Nano Center. It's a site that will soon have a 300,000 square foot facility. Actually, something around there. It's absurdly huge. To give you guys an idea, that little yellow blob in the bottom left corner is a 6 foot tall man. The excavator on the right can fill a dump truck in 2 scoops. So major things happening in our community. And I get to document these types of process. I also do a lot with larger companies that are moving in and so on. I've been working with Danfoss for about 3 months and kind of helping them tell the story of coming to Utica and building microchip fab in Utica. I also deal with tech transfer. I work with Rome Lab, and basically I work with them to help bring Air Force intellectual property out to the commercial sector. It's interesting, I had no idea before I started doing this type of stuff that the Air Force actually doesn't want to create the product. They want to invent it and then let someone else make the product and then buy it back. So really interesting how the government sector works. But we've been working with Rome Lab to help tell the story of the different patents that are available for people to commercialize. And it's very, I find that I get very invested in the clients that I work with. So I feel like I'm actually a part of their company. And it's very interesting to see how this has evolved. And it's actually what we're doing in Rome Lab is expanding across the nation to the other Air Force research labs. I also deal a lot with the nonprofit sector. So this year I've had the opportunity to work with the Root Farm and Upstate Cerebral Palsy. And this is the only handicap accessible high ropes course in the Northeast, possibly the entire country. We are still waiting to confirm that. You can literally bring a wheelchair up and take someone out of a wheelchair and put them out onto this course. And we are working with the Root Farm, and any given day now, we will be releasing an entire marketing overhaul, including photo, video, new website, the whole 9 yards. I've got a team that's been working on this for about 6.5 months. And it's just crazy stuff. And what really gets me jobs is the fact that I'm willing to go to whatever length it takes to get the shot needed to tell the story the right way. One of the things with the Root Farm was I had to rappel down the climbing wall to be able to get the shots because we wanted to get that nice up close feel of what goes on. Last year when I was working with the Community Foundation, this was a job that it took 5 days to make a 60-second commercial. And it took a team of 5 people. And I had to follow people on bicycles while holding a 3-axis camera stabilizer like this, looking at a screen on the handlebars and getting the shot of them tracking. So we got not an easy feat. It took us probably 35 tries to actually get it. And that's a good gist of what I do locally. And what I do overseas is very similar. I work with small nonprofits in developing countries to basically help them grow. So earlier this year, I had the opportunity to go to the Democratic Republic of Congo with an organization called E4 Project. E4 Project is a small nonprofit that has 1 employee. And basically what he does is he helps get fundraising for people in other countries to do work to help grow. So I was there I brought one other guy with me, and we documented enough material to do fundraising work for the next 5 years. in 9 days. And this organization is trying to start a 250-acre coffee plantation. They're trying to start a pig farm. They're trying to help get a new truck so they can get medicine. They're also trying to get clean water. They found a way in this area to get clean water for about $1 a person for an entire 100 square kilometer area of Democratic Republic of Congo. Very, very incredible stuff that these people are trying to do. And being there and showing people what they actually do is half the battle. When I go overseas, I bring all of the tools that I use in the US with me. So as you can see, same camera that's sitting in the back of the room, videoing me right now, is the same one that I was watching in operation in the middle of Democratic Republic of Congo. I was literally 6 inches away from the table. It was interesting. We also bring drones with us. One of the nice things with going overseas is they have a lot less restrictions with drones than we have here. So I was actually flying at 2,000, 3,000 feet where I would be getting in mucho trouble with the FAA locally. And so that brings us to what actually goes on. And so seeing kids like this who are malnourished, not because of any fault of their own, the hospital is working to bring the nutrition, their ability to live better. And so we were documenting the process of what they're doing. So that way when they go to funders and say, here's what we're doing, here's so you can see it. Perfect example, one of the projects we did already was to finish off a school there. And they needed 10 grand to finish the school roof. The director of the organization debuted this video at a church, and he walks off stage 5 minutes later, gets 5 grand. Guy literally handed him a check and goes, you showed me what the need is, here you go. And that's a testament to having the quality media. And that's really how I got into this. There we go. To give you guys an idea of how remote I was, right down here in this corner is the end of the airstrip we were dropped off in. This is the house I stayed in. So, and during the civil war in the Congo, no one bothered to fight in this village because it was too far out there. So, literal end of the world as we know it. About 2 weeks ago, I was actually in Senegal, West Africa, working on an education project where this remote village I was in does everything the way that we would have done it 150, 200 years ago. So they actually harvest peanuts by hand. Women take buckets with the roots and then dump it to separate the peanuts from the roots. And then they shuck every peanut by hand. And so they're trying to get where the kids who they just got out of high school about a year and a half ago in this village. And before that, kids were walking about 3 hours a day to go to school. Now they only have to walk 1 to 2 hours a day. How many of you guys would walk 1 to 2 hours a day to go to school? No one? Okay. So education over there is a lot more work than what we know of it as today. And then even at that, the kids, when they graduate high school in this village, still have never seen a computer. So how many of you students remember when you first used a computer? Can anyone tell me the exact moment? All right, a couple of you. These kids can't get ahead because they just don't have access. So the organization that I was working with is trying to start a library media center with computer lab where they can actually train kids in junior high, high school how to use computers, even just basic computing like how to use Microsoft Word. And that's what they're trying to do. So I was showing what's there, what they want to do, kind of trying to help them be able to do fundraising. I don't know if you guys are getting the gist that what I do is help businesses grow. Because if the business isn't growing, then what I do is pointless. And going back even more detail, to give you an idea, this guy has, as you can kind of see, half of one of his fingers and still manages to put in the work. Photo is a small portion of what I do. The majority of what I actually do is video related. And so I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a gist of what I have done. Everything in here was just this 1 year. So this will give you guys a glimpse into what I do. if it wants to play. Dun, dun, dun. That final shot is a once-in-a-lifetime shot. The only reason we got it is because the one pilot in the organization that flew us in and out, that was willing to let us fly a drone, happened to be the pilot that came in to get my dad when he was leaving. So how did I get here? Well, why I'm here, it starts way before even I had picked up a camera, never mind I'd even really traveled overseas. Starting in 2002, my dad started designing and building a hospital in Mali, West Africa. And that turned into opportunities starting my freshman year of college to travel with him. Yes, that's me with a mohawk. Every year for my teenage years, I cut my hair into a mohawk in the summer. Sometimes I ask myself why I did it now, but it was what I wanted to do at the time. And so 2007, I got to go to Burkina Faso with my dad, and we were doing some electrical work in a library, and this was my first time seeing what was going on overseas and seeing how people's lives can be changed by what we would think of as small things. I don't think of doing electrical work as a major life-changing thing. So being able to see how these lives are being impacted really helps me get an understanding of what else goes on in the world. And so started traveling a little bit. 2008, I went to Gabon. 2009, I went to Indonesia. And again, I still hadn't touched the camera. I wouldn't have even thought of bringing a camera along outside of like a little point and shoot or a cell phone. And so end of 2009, early 2010, I had to take an elective in college. Just so happened the only elective that fit my schedule around athletics was Intro to Digital Photography. This is also my only formal education in what I do today. So that is a testament to you don't have to go to college to be able to be successful. I have an associate's degree from MVCC in web design and management. I also have an associate's in general communications, more focused on radio. None of what I deal with on a day-to-day basis. I also have no education in business background, so I've had to learn a lot of the school of hard knocks on how to run a business. So it's been a learning curve. And so like they said, in 2012, I had the opportunity to go to Taiwan where this was actually when I started shooting video for the first time. And I was working with a small coffee shop and church plant over there doing all their media marketing strategies and photo video work. And so this was really where I started to cut my teeth in what I'm doing today. I came home from Taiwan 3 days before Hurricane Sandy hit and got stuck in New York City. Ended up doing disaster relief down there for 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks, which then turned into me coming home right before my dad was going back to Africa. And my dad says, hey, you got nothing going on, you want to go back to Africa? So, of course. And this trip was probably, we couldn't have planned it, but it turned out to be what turned into the company. So while we were flying over, the people we were supposed to work with, excuse me, had a death in their family. So we actually ended up passing them in the airport as they were coming to the US as we had landed in Burkina Faso. And we ended up connecting with some other people with their organization, and they were showing us everything that goes on in the country that this organization is trying to do. Long story short, I realized how much they have and how little I knew because they didn't have the ability to tell people. They didn't have the ability to show people what they're doing because they just didn't know how to use a camera. They didn't have cameras. So I had my cameras along and I started doing photo and video of that trip. Then I started to help them with getting some of that material out, realizing the impact that it can have, decided to start the company about 1.5 months later. I really did not plan on doing any work locally. I planned on just doing work overseas. But after about 4 months of not making money, I realized that there was no money in it. So I had to figure out a way to make money. So that was when I started doing commercial work locally. And as I've learned over the years that it's all about who you know, not necessarily what you know. I can guarantee you I'm not the best videographer in the area. I can guarantee you I'm not the best business person in the area. But I know how to tell a story and I know how to help a business grow. And so that over the last few years has turned into a very, very rapid growth where we opened a 2,000 square foot office space in South Utica that has many features that you would only find in a major city. So I have extremely fast fiber optic internet where I'm uploading files to the UK, to Asia for some of my clients, Germany for Dan Foss. But also I have what is called an editing suite, which is an area where I can bring a client in and actually have the client in the room while I'm editing, and they can make the changes in real time for their video. And that's something you would see in Hollywood or New York City on major productions, but you would never think of it being here. I've actually been told by other people that that's not how it works in this area. And I say, well, why can't it work that way? Because I have a computer and someone can see it can work. So that's where things have grown to today. And I am going to finish this part of it. I wanted to give a little time for Q&A with a story that it is based around this photo. And this is a perfect testament to why I do what I do. These women, I think, were 17 and 20-ish. And this was in 2014. My dad and I had just installed a solar-powered water pump onto a well at a school. And we put a 3,000 liter tank which gravity fed 9 spigots in a garden. This school could barely sustain what they were growing with their hand-dug wells. So the people were barely being able to eat enough food. And after this system was up and running, I actually had to teach these women right before I took this photo how to use a faucet. Raise your hand if you remember when you learned how to use a faucet. I've given this speech 7 or 8 times. I've never had someone raise their hand. It was unfathomable to me that someone that is a grown adult didn't know how to use a faucet, and this was the first time they did not have to work to get clean water, or even water in general. So seeing how their lives had changed and the sheer joy on their face when they realized they no longer had to work to get access to water was mind-blowing to me. Then over the next year, my dad went back the year after, the garden had grown 6-fold in 1 year just because of having this access to water. That turned into going from barely sustaining to they were selling surplus at the local market. Social economic impact. Huge, huge, huge change in the way these people live. So why I'm here is because seeing changes like that sparked me, and that's what made me want to get into business, and that's really where my passion is. But I just love seeing business grow and seeing everything happens. And so, yeah, I do want to open it up for some questions. If you guys have any questions, I would love to answer them. Because we do still have a little bit of time, right? Okay. Raise your hand if you have a question. Yeah.
When you originally started your company,
Yep.
and I noticed you do a lot overseas with a lot of these businesses, like you said, Taiwan, etc.
Yep.
How were you initially coming about meeting these people? What's putting your business out and standing out in front of all these companies throughout these countries versus any other company that's out there?
All right, so if you couldn't hear him, how do I meet these people and how do I stand out? Well, that goes to exactly how I built my business here, relationships. Everywhere I've worked has been because I knew someone that knew someone that knew someone. Perfect example, me going to Burkina Faso. My dad is the one that brought me. While we were there, I met 10 people that work there and live there full time. Those 10 people talked to another 10 people. Also, when I went to Congo, the reason both my dad and I have a relationship with Congo is because I was down at my alma mater, Nyack, and we were playing in the alumni soccer game. Just happened to be talking to the right guy after the game, and he worked for the organization at that time. He then ended up leaving the organization, and the new director came on, and he sent out an email, and he's like, hey, I saw a note that you do video production. We're trying to expand what we're doing in Congo. Might you be interested in partnering with us? So it's all comes down to relationships, and don't burn bridges, whatever you do, because you never know how someone will affect your life in the future. Yeah.
Well, first things first, hello, I'm David Jordan. I'm a senior at Thomas Proactive. And my question for you was, as I see your business is constantly being successful, it's constantly expanding, do you see yourself expanding past the small sphere that is your community? And where would you go?
So I'm about as planted gets of living here. I have no interest in moving my business out of the area. I do plan on expanding how I reach people, but that depends on my clients because 95% of my work is actually in Herkimer and Oneida counties. If I'm not overseas, I don't leave Herkimer and Oneida counties right now. And there is a lot of untapped resources in this area of organizations that are growing. About 85% of my work is with nonprofits, and there are 1,600 nonprofits in Herkimer and Oneida counties. So I've got plenty of work I can be doing locally before I have to really expand out of the area. Another question? Anyone else? All right. I guess that's it. Sean? If you have a question.